I'm going to start sharing my slides. And I would like to welcome everyone. I am Tom Morgan, a cisgender, balding white man in my 60s. I'm wearing glasses and a peach and blue plaid shirt. I'm hosting this webinar from the unceded lands of the Western Abenaki people and what the colonizers named the Champlain Valley of Vermont. And I'm thrilled that you're here. I am sorry to say that the Reverend Dr. Brock Leach, one of my mentors and dear friends and a board member of Green Mountain Justice, has had a medical emergency, so he's unable to join us today, but we will persevere, and I will show you some things that are in here that he provided for us as well. Today, we'd like to provide an overview of our model of community ministry. Before we get into what we hope to be a vibrant and covenantally important discussion, we'd like to outline what we're doing with some slides. So we're going to discuss some of the inspiration that drives our community ministry. We're going to acknowledge some of the social and cultural issues in our environment. We're going to talk about the model and how we started the model and are evolving what we call relational elements, what the dominant paradigm usually calls programming. We also are going to kind of get into a little bit of what we consider to be our secret sauce. And then we're going to talk about how our model operates in a tradition of Unitarian Universalism, organizing and liberation to expand the spiritual vitality beyond individualistic ideologies and concepts. We'll wrap up with some lessons learning, some early results, and some structural stuff before opening up for conversation. One of the things that we need to say from the very beginning is that we believe that we are here to meet the moment in a way that Reverend Sophia reminded us our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to do. One of my favorite presentations by Reverend Sophia was her 2024 holiday message, in which she talked about the necessity for us to reassess our commitments, deepen our engagement with our values, and move forward. And then, of course, in her opening remarks, she highlighted the fact that we really need to learn together and experiment and be willing to accept a risk so that we can really move far beyond what we could do individually. Our call to faith is a call to action, and our faith and our values at Green Mountain Justice pretty much drive everything that we do. Last year's General Assembly and the adoption of the Article 2 changes of our values really put our principles into action for community ministry. Our community ministry reflects the interdependent creation and nurturing of relationships and mutuality to try to create a just and beloved community. We very much believe in the radical plurality of creation. And early on in our model, we recognized the connective power of generosity in our interdependent world, and that it is not only a generosity of resources, but it is also the generosity of presence and spirit that is very important, although the dominant paradigm would have us think otherwise. Perhaps most importantly, our model seeks to advance equity, not by simply declaring the inherent and equal worthiness of every person, but also calling out and advocating against attempts to subordinate the needs of the disenfranchised and marginalized to those of the privileged. Love is in the power that unifies all of us in and beyond the walls of our congregations, and we are energized by our faith, and that we believe will transform the world. We are clearly living through a time of increasing social, economic, and spiritual disparity and inequity. We are in an epidemic of loneliness, and despite our saturated information sphere, our neighbors are feeling increasingly isolated. Our culture and politics are divisive in the extreme, and we know that it is always the disenfranchised that pay the highest prices for that divisiveness. Camps of ideologies are withdrawing from one another to insulate themselves, which is creating the polarization of tribalism. And yet our search for purpose and meaning continue. In this environment, and armed with our Unitarian Universalist faith and in covenant with one another, we set out to create a full model of community justice ministry that centers the needs of our marginalized communities. We call them neighbors. Increase and enrich connections and collaborations within our community of communities, as Paula Cole Jones would call them, and engage in actions at the local, regional, and state levels to create systemic change. We call this a full spectrum community ministry. Green Mountain Justice is really a culmination of mystery, faithful dialogue, and intention that started during my hybrid internship that was based out of the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society in Middlebury, Vermont. Now, Vermont has a well-earned reputation as a progressive place to live. But what a lot of folks don't know is that we have one of the highest rates of homelessness and food insecurity in the nation. We have seen about a 350% increase in homelessness since 2019, and we're approaching 40% of the population of Vermont experiences some degree of food insecurity during the year. Federal cuts are definitely exacerbating the marginalization and oppression, and the system, which is rooted in the slave master's toolkit, cannot respond at the speed of need. So, like so many other places, we have high rates of substance addiction and untreated mental illness. And while Vermont may be known as the first state to abolish slavery, the birthplace of same-sex civil unions, and of course the home of Bernie, too many of our neighbors live in conditions of intersectional impoverishment and depression. So while we work at connecting and caring for the marginalized beyond the walls of our congregations, we started in this internship really to ask questions of what we might do to more fully mobilize Unitarian Universalism to collectively respond relationally with neighbors in need. In our model, we started with, Patrick, can I get you to go on mute? Thank you. In our model, we started by increasing representation and collaborations. We also increased congregational opportunities for folks to engage and serve the intersectionally and create opportunities for the community members. Um, I'm sorry, I think we have a hot mic. Ben, is that your hot mic?
And I am telling them that that is not okay. And yes, I can technically.
There we go. And also to accelerate multiculturalism. In the accelerating multiculturalism part, we were really excited to engage Paula Cole Jones as she kind of took us through issues of developing intercultural competence, being more aware and able to assess and work together to improve intercultural competence, and also just interculturally engage in a way that's not assimilating, but in a way that respects communities' norms and values, so that we could more fully understand the kind of basically dismantlement and deconstruction that's necessary to build a foundation for a beloved community. It was a powerful experience, and we've learned quite a bit from the lessons of the proof of concept that was that particular internship. As we describe on our website, our mission at Green Mountain Justice is pretty simple. Our mission is to care, collaborate, and advocate. And neighbor care is really the heartbeat of what we do. We work closely with neighbors that are oppressed and marginalized by socioeconomics, by race, by ableism, and we work to connect them with not just services, but other neighbors who are seeking more relational support and more relational engagement in order to try to assuage this epidemic of isolation and loneliness. We started some innovative collaborations in our community, such as Queerly Beloved, which began as an LGBTQ plus group for folks who are in substance recovery. And it began with 6 folks meeting every other Thursday in a safe location. And it has expanded to about 30 folks from all over the state, meeting on Zoom, meeting in person at our congregation, and also just allies. It's been a fantastic development, actually. And we also started something called Foster Family Circles, in which we have separate relational programming for caregivers and also foster kids. We're a foster family ourselves, and that's proven to be really transformational for those families as well. One of the things that we really do focus on in terms of our collaboration and advocacy is the human story and really lifting the stories of the prophets and sages that exist in the intersections. And we're very intentional about their voices and making sure that they are heard and seen. So our models, what we call our secret sauce, is really to show up, you know, basically to lift the beloveds out of the intersections of impoverishment and oppression. We believe that some of us are actually have to go in and work in those intersections to be present and connect through that which transcends, um, not necessarily that which comforts or tribalizes and makes people divided and separated. We definitely center the people that we work with, and we work from that position. And we operate with what the feminist theologian Sharon Welch calls an ethic of risk versus an ethic of control, which predominates our culture. We truly believe that change must happen and transformation is possible. And when we get tired, we turn to our faith and we rest in our faith. Now, if Dr. Leach was here with us, what he would be talking about right now, and again, I'm sorry he can't join us. He's had a medical incident, so he's not going to be able to join us. But I'm hoping to speak to the slides that he added here a little bit. What he wanted to point out was that in his work with the UU Service Committee, when he served on the board, he pointed out that the past 87 years of the committee had developed and demonstrated a theory of change that starts with the oppressed, understanding the situation directly from those who are affected. Often people are struggling to get by and don't recognize that they have fundamental human rights. And once they realize their own inherent worth and dignity, they often become angry and then they get motivated to do something about it. And then when we organize them and organize ourselves locally and begin to support one another, we are able to assert and help them assert their rights. Next, we connect people in different ways in different communities who are dealing with the same problems and learning from one another and building solidarity and forming solutions that work in community. And then we're able to join with others and become effective advocates for systemic change. And that's what the model that Green Mountain Justice employs. It's a model for all social justice work because it centers the people who are most affected. One of the questions that naturally comes up in this work is, what does success look like? What would we expect to see happen along the way? In Dr. Leach's research on multiculturalism with 6 UU congregations across the country, he's developed some conclusions of what it takes to become multicultural. And it's become clear to us that it's really about the number of people we reach, not about the number of people we reach, although that's important. It's really about the mix of different identities we'd like to see in enriching through diversity. We concluded that spiritual vitality, creating congregations and organizations where anyone, regardless of who they are and where they come from, can find spiritual wholeness, belonging, and meaning in their lives. And so we started to ask ourselves, what would this look like? And we realized that we would ask people these kinds of questions. Do you feel a sense of belonging? Do you feel seen and heard? Are they experiencing their own agency and their ability to move their lives forward? Are they developing their own leadership skills? And what are they finding a personal sense of purpose and meaning in? Are they connecting with others? We call these spiritual vitality indicators, and asking ourselves how we're doing these in dimensions that could inform what we need to do to serve more people and create more spiritual wholeness. Of course, none of this is work we can do by ourselves, and it require being part of a community of care where people support one another through shared values. So this issue of spiritual vitality has become really a cornerstone in terms of really trying to connect people with each other and connect through what is transcendent. So one of the other thing about research in multiculturalism is that we've come to a conclusion that to become spiritually vital, we need to do some things differently. In our society and our UU congregations, we spend a lot of time learning about and debating differences in ideologies and identities. And it's essential that we understand those differences. But learning about them by itself does not lead to spiritual vitality or beloved community. So, one of the things that we're trying to do is move past this to become clearer about the desired ends that we seek. In the case of Green Mountain Justice, we might say that we want no one to be exposed to extreme weather. We want unhoused people to be at the table informing community solutions. We want to build an alliance of leaders from the unhoused community, state and local governments, volunteer and nonprofit organizations to build and prove up a comprehensive approach to addressing the problem. At the same time, we need to make sure that the whole effort is grounded in shared values. And you couldn't do better than to see our 7 UU values with love at the center. And here's the thing, that shared work of connecting the desired ends to the shared values is where spiritual vitality is formed. It's where we collaborate to create solutions that none of us could have conceived alone. It's where we experience our own sense of purpose, meaning, and connection that helps all of us feel spiritually whole. Said differently, it is itself an ultimate spiritual discipline. So for us as UUs, we need to acknowledge ideologies and identities, but we need to develop a whole series of new practices in our congregations and communities that will actually bring about beloved community. Maybe that means creating room for new people with ideas to try them out and experiment with them, as Reverend Sophia mentioned in her opening comments. Maybe it means inviting new people into leadership and supporting them. And maybe it means thinking of ourselves as serving the larger communities we're part of, not just our own membership. Maybe it means regularly checking in on what we're doing with our spiritual vitality indicators. And for some of us, like me, who serve in Green Mountain Justice, it means spending a lot of time under bridges and on the byroads of impoverishment. So we're learning a lot of lessons as we work through our model and we work through our community ministry. One of the primary lessons that we're learning is for sure the demonstrated Unitarian Universalist values that we have are catalytic and transcendent. We really do believe in the actionable and action orientation of our values. And we believe that equity in practice, that generosity in terms of presence and resources, and also justice, these are really transcendent values. We also have come to believe, particularly working within systems of human or social services, that the status quo benefits the empire and that change and transformation is required. And that if we're going to claim a liberal tradition, then we need to be aware that liberal traditions are those that liberate people, and we must keep that in mind. Finally, as we've learned and worked very closely with folks, proximity to those that we serve and minister to is really critical in our advocacy work. And maybe as Pope Francis would have put it, to pastor in a way that we take on the smell of the sheep. It has been really important that we spend more time with people than in front of screens, for example. We spend most of our time not behind a desk, but but with folks who are in experiencing oppression and disenfranchisement. I don't really like using the word results, but I will just kind of indicate to try to give you some idea of where we are currently. We just started our community ministry back in late March. Right now, we have about 21 neighbors. I had to change the number because it increased from when I built the slides until today. We have about 13 adults and caregivers and about 8 kids, 8 children in our neighbor care network. And we come around them with services that we've curated about 25 core partners and about 50 total partners that can help folks who are experiencing marginalization and impoverishment. We're proud to say that in the past, since we started, but even before we started, at the beginning of the internship last May, of the folks that the unhoused community members that we work with, all remain sheltered, and all the folks who are housing insecure remain housed. They are expanding connections and they are building their confidence and releasing shame. We're supporting transportation needs. We support needs for groceries. We support sometimes we help folks make up, the need for rent or a light bill. And we're also working hard to develop a network of neighbor care neighbors, what some people call volunteers, in order to provide a real net of support around these folks. Um, we're curating collaborative partnerships that are trauma responsive because we know that we have to build trust with folks, and that connection leads to trust, and then trust creates healthy relationships, and those are transformational. And again, um, we work hard to actually, for those neighbors that are interested in advocating, getting them into the state capitol in Montpelier or however they would like to advocate. We also work closely with our news sources in the area to create partnerships where we can help our neighbors write op-eds or articles about their lives. And this has also been transformative to them. We're working with all sorts of folks. We work with single moms and kids. We work with migrants. We work with formerly and currently incarcerated beloveds. We work with folks of all sex and gender identities. We work with neighbors in substance abuse recovery and more. So we're really working with a lot of folks. Just a quick word about some of the structural things about Green Mountain Justice. Green Mountain Justice is a fiscally sponsored 501c3 of Beloved Builders and Beloved Garden. I highly recommend you check out their website. It's really, they're doing some amazing work. It's a community incubator. And as someone with a background in both complex systems engineering and shelter management and homelessness outreach, I operate a consulting S Corp LLC, which, when we can land contracts, helps defray all the staff costs associated with operating Green Mountain Justice. And it really helps us be efficient with donations and any grants that we can receive. We're also part of some really impactful and generative collaborations. Through our LLC, for example, we have teamed with the Vermont Interfaith Action Network to coordinate this year's extreme weather sheltering program across the state of Vermont. And we're engaged with the Privilege and Power program at Middlebury College as well. Green Mountain Justice is a board member of the Middlebury College Center for Community Engagement, the Addison Community Substance Abuse Prevention Council, and our state's Continuum of Care Network for our unhoused neighbors. And so, as I mentioned, we're a startup, and what we're really focused on now, before we expand our programming, is to establish more stakeholder support and support, obviously, the individuals that are in our care network, and we never turn anyone away. So also continue to provide care for them. And that's kind of where we're at. And so what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stop the recording, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to open it up for comments and questions and any feedback that you have. There's some prompts here, but really, I just really would love to hear any feedback or thoughts that you may have.